In this video, I'm going to be going over the 12 new subclasses that are coming to Baldur's Gate 3 with the upcoming free patch 8. Please do keep in mind though that I will be using Larian's recent community update subclass info combined with D&D 5e subclass info to get an idea as to what these subclasses will be like and entail. So while much of this will likely turn out to be generally right, don't treat everything in this video as the holy bible for subclass information. We already know that several of these subclasses are heavily homebrewed. Chapter markers below. Let's start right off with the Glamour Bard, which can be found in the 5e module Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The College of Glamour is described as the home of bards who mastered their craft in the vibrant realm of the Feywild, or under the tutelage of someone who dwelled there. Tutored by satyrs, eladrin, and other Fey, these bards learn to use their magic to delight and captivate others. The bards of this college are regarded with a mixture of awe and fear. Their performances are the stuff of legend. These bards are so eloquent that a speech or song that one of them performs can cause captors to release the bard unharmed and can lull a furious dragon into complacency. The same magic that allows them to quell beasts can also bend minds. Villainous bards of this college can leech off a community for weeks, abusing their magic to turn their hosts into thralls. Heroic bards of this college instead use this power to gladden the downtrodden and undermine oppressors. At level 3 in Baldur's Gate 3 is when you get to choose your bard's subclass. And if you choose the College of Glamour, it's already confirmed that you'll be gaining Mantle of Inspiration, which at the cost of your bonus action and a bardic inspiration die, you'll be able to choose a limited amount of allies to give 5 temporary hit points to. And that amount of HP will also likely increase at levels 8 and 11. According to Larian's community update description, Mantle of Inspiration will make it so if one of these allies are attacked, their attacking opponent will become charmed, and I'm not sure if that will be tied to a save or not yet. In 5th edition, Mantle of Inspiration actually gives allies the ability to use their reaction to move without provoking opportunity attacks. No idea if Larian will be including that though. Also at Bard class level 3, Glamour Bards in 5e receive Enthralling Performance, which basically beefs up their performance, which in Baldur's Gate 3 is playing your instrument. If they do it like 5e, your performances will now have a chance to charm multiple audience members, and there's no risk as the ones that pass their saves will not know that you attempted to charm them. You'll likely only be able to use this feature once per short or long rest, and we're not exactly sure how Larian will implement this, if they even do, but it will be exciting if they do add some new cool bard music and visual effects to performance. At level 6, Glamour Bards receive Mantle of Majesty, which combos really well with Mantle of Inspiration, which we talked about earlier. Larian states that Mantle of Majesty will allow your bard to target charmed opponents to command them to flee, move closer, drop to the ground, or drop their weapon. This can be quite powerful as it will likely only cost a bonus action and not actually expend a spell slot, and it will also likely auto-succeed on charmed opponents, no save required. Mantle of Majesty can only be used once per long rest in 5th edition, so Baldur's Gate 3 will likely be that, or perhaps it will work off the short rest feature. Moving on to the Path of Giants Barbarian, which can be found in Bigsby's Presence, and is described as barbarians who walk the path of the giant draw strength from the same primal forces as giants. As they rage, these barbarians surge with elemental power and grow in size, taking on forms that evoke the glory of giants. Some barbarians look like oversized versions of themselves, perhaps with a hint of elemental energy flaring in their eyes and around their weapons. Others transform more dramatically, taking on the appearance of an actual giant or a form similar to an elemental, wreathed in fire, frost, or lightning. Larian states that the Path of Giants will make it easier for you to yeet friend and foe alike, no need for potions. In Baldur's Gate 3, it is confirmed that the Giant Barb will get an increased carrying capacity, which is actually not something that can be found in the 5e version. At class level 3 is when you'll be able to choose this subclass, and in 5e, the Path of the Giant Barb gets a choice of a cantrip between Druidcraft and Thaumaturgy. Now, Druidcraft isn't a cantrip in Baldur's Gate 3, so who knows what Larian will do here, if anything at all. Like with the other Barbarian subclasses, your subclass choice is when your Rage takes on features representing that subclass choice. The Giant Barbarian's Rage is confirmed to increase throw attack damage, and also increase the size of your barbarian Barbarian. This can be a great and funny combo with dwarves and gnomes. In Baldur's Gate 3, size increase also typically comes with a damage increase, and it gives advantage on strength checks and saving throws, but it's not 100% confirmed that it will work like this with this subclass rage feature in Baldur's Gate 3. At class level 6 in 5th edition, your Barbarian will gain a feature that is called Elemental Cleaver, which allows you to infuse your weapons with primordial energy, which includes the choices of acid, cold, fire, thunder, or lightning damage. This can only be used when raging. Now, Elemental Cleaver, or whatever Larian chooses to call it, I'm assuming they'll include it to some degree, will give your weapon an extra 1 to 6 damage increase of the chosen element, and it gives your weapon the throw property with the added blessing from Thor, meaning that that weapon will return to your hands after you throw it. So yeah, you should be able to actually throw big two-handed weapons as a giant barb. Is that how it works, 5e players? On top of that, in 5th edition, while raging and holding the infused weapon, the giant barb can use a bonus action to change the weapon's damage type. Very cool. And at class level 10 in 5e, and some version of this is confirmed to be in Baldur's Gate 3 as well, giant barbs get Mighty Impel, allowing them to throw medium or small creatures up to 30 feet away at the cost of a bonus action. And on to the highly requested subclass, the Death Domain Cleric, which can be found in the Dungeon Master's Guide and is described as: the Death Domain is concerned with the forces that cause death, as well as the negative energy that gives rise to undead creatures. Deities such as Kamash, Merkel, and Ouijas are patrons of necromancers, death knights, liches, mummy lords, and vampires. Gods of the Death Domain also embody murder, pain, disease or poison, and the underworld. Right away at level 1, if you choose this domain, you'll likely gain proficiency with martial weapons, and we know for certain that 3 new necromancy cantrips have been added to the game, including Toll the Dead. At level 1 as a Death Domain Cleric in 5e, you get to choose 1 necromancy cantrip from any class's spell list, and you get the added benefit of having necromancy cantrips that only target 1 creature now be able to target 2 creatures if those creatures are close to one another. For those who are curious, Toll the Dead, which is confirmed as one of these new necromancy cantrips, will have your cleric ring a bell of impending doom, dealing 1 to 8 necrotic damage, but that number scales if your target has already been damaged. This is a nice addition for the cleric class in general, as pretty much everyone hates using Sacred Flame. Before we move on to the level 2 channel divinities, I think it's important to state now that Larian has added a homebrew feature for this subclass. And this feature allows the Death Domain Cleric to explode nearby corpses, dealing AoE damage. I'm not sure what this feature will be called or how it will be implemented, but it's certain to be a feature that makes this subclass extremely popular, as who doesn't want to blow up corpses? At level 2, the Death Cleric's channel divinity in 5e is called Touch of Death. And this makes it so when you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can use Channel Divinity to deal significant extra necrotic damage to that target. At level 6 in 5e, Death Domain Clerics receive Inescapable Destruction, which makes it so the necrotic damage dealt by your necrotic spells will now ignore resistances. This can be great for many fights in Baldur's Gate 3. At level 8 in 5th edition, you gain Divine Strike, which is a feature that is already in Baldur's Gate 3 for the other cleric subclasses, so I'm sure it will be here for the Death Domain as well. And Divine Strike for the Death Domain Cleric will likely allow the cleric to infuse their weapon strikes with necrotic energy, causing their weapon attack to deal an extra 1 to 8 damage once per turn. And the last thing that I want to show here is the 5th edition list of Death Domain Cleric spells that Death Clerics receive and will have always prepared at these given levels. False Life and Ray of Sickness at level 1, Blindness and Ray of Enfeeblement at 3, Animate Dead and Vampiric Touch at 5, Blight and Death Ward at level 7, and Anti-Life Shell and Cloud Kill at 9, but Anti-Life is not in Baldur's Gate 3 currently, so who knows what that will be in Baldur's Gate 3. Moving on to the Circle of Stars Druid, a very intriguing subclass, and this subclass can be found in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and is described as: the Circle of Stars allows druids to draw on the power of starlight. These druids have tracked heavenly patterns since time immemorial, discovering secrets hidden amid the constellations. By revealing and understanding these secrets, the Circle of Stars seeks to harness the powers of the cosmos. Many druids of this circle keep records of the constellations and the stars' effects on the world. Some groups document these observations as megalithic sites, which serve as enigmatic libraries of lore. These repositories might take the form of stone circles, pyramids, petroglyphs, and underground temples, any construction durable enough to protect the circle's sacred knowledge even against a great cataclysm. Level 2 in Baldur's Gate 3 is when you'll be able to choose Circle of Stars, and this is also when you'll gain its most notable features: the ability to use Wild Shape to take on the form of the Archer, Chalice, or Dragon, each of which favors a different playstyle and strategy, according to Larian. These starry forms are not just an aesthetic, as they offer practical, powerful options to enhance your role as healer, fighter, or strategist. The Archer is confirmed to allow you to deal radiant damage with astral arrows. In 5e, this comes at the cost of just your bonus action, and the radiant arrows deal 1 to 8 damage plus your wisdom modifier. The Chalice form gives life-restoring hit points to you and others nearby, and in 5th edition it works like this. Whenever you cast a spell using a spell slot that restores HP to a creature, you or another creature within 30 feet can regain hit points equal to 1 to 8 plus your wisdom modifier, so a boost to healing. And the Dragon form is confirmed to allow Star Druids to deal damage with an added bonus to Constitution rolls. This will of course help with concentration saves to help your Dragon Star Druid maintain concentration on concentration spells. Also at level 2 in 5th edition, Star Druids learn the Guidance cantrip, and they learn the powerful Guiding Bolt Cleric spell, which will be always prepared for your Druid, and you can even cast Guiding Bolt without expending a spell slot. My guess is that if Larian includes that, this Guiding Bolt free use will recharge on a short or long rest. At level 6 in 5e, the Star Druid gains Cosmic Omen, which basically allows the Druid to gain a special reaction that can be used to increase an ally's attack roll by 1 to 6, or it can be used to decrease an opponent's attack roll by 1 to 6. In 5e, it's actually random which reaction your Star Druid will get to use after a long rest, but in Baldur's Gate 3, if this is included, my guess is that you'll be able to choose what omen you want, and it will probably recharge on a short rest. Cosmic Omen is similar in some ways to Bardic Inspiration. And at level 10, Star Druid's Wild Shape Constellation forms will become more powerful, with the Archer dealing 2 to 16 damage with its Radiant Arrows, which it was 1 to 8 before, the Chalice's healing being increased to 2 to 16, and in 5e, the Dragon form gets a boost to fly speed or something like that. Not sure what they'll do in Baldur's Gate 3. Also very important to note for this subclass is that at level 10, Star Druids will likely be able to change their starry form at the start of each of their turns. So you can keep changing from Dragon to Archer to Chalice depending on the immediate situation. It's a really awesome feature and will make this class likely a ton of fun. The Oath of the Crown Paladin can be found in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide and is described as, "The Oath of the Crown is sworn to the ideals of civilization, be it the spirit of a nation, fealty to a sovereign, or service to a deity of law and rulership. The paladins who swear this oath dedicate themselves to serving society, and in particular, the just laws that hold society together. These paladins are the watchful guardians on the walls, standing against the chaotic tides of barbarism that threaten to tear down all that civilization has built, and are commonly known as guardians, exemplars, or sentinels. Often paladins who swear this oath are members of an order of knighthood in service to a nation or sovereign, and undergo their oath as part of their admission to the order's ranks." Unlike in 5e, BG3 paladins get their oath at level 1, and since this is perhaps the most RP-focused class in the game, understand that the Oath of Crown Paladins swear an oath to their sovereign, and although who that sovereign may be can vary, of course, generally speaking, you're swearing an oath of upholding the law, an oath of loyalty, an oath of courage, meaning you're willing to do whatever needs to be done for the sake of order, and an oath of responsibility. This is important as Larian does have mechanics for paladins in the game that can cause them to break their oaths. And speaking of breaking oaths, the Oathbreaker Knight NPC in Baldur's Gate 3 actually appears to have once been an Oath of the Crown Paladin, but he broke his oath and is now an Oathbreaker. At level 3, Crown Paladins get their Channel Divinity, and in 5e these include Champion Challenge, which costs a bonus action and allows your Paladin to basically taunt multiple opponents, and if successful, those creatures won't be able to move more than 30 feet away from your Paladin, and possibly, I'm not sure if this will be a feature, but possibly they may actually be compelled to attack your Paladin. It's a great tank ability, and being able to use it on likely multiple opponents will probably make it a pretty powerful feature, much more so than just that command dual spell. And the other Channel Divinity is Turn the Tide, which costs a bonus action and is basically an AoE heal up to 30 feet that will give multiple allies a 1-6 HP plus Charisma heal. At level 7, Crown Paladins in 5th edition, and also mostly confirmed in Baldur's Gate 3, gain Divine Allegiance, which allows them to use a reaction to basically take damage that would have otherwise affected an ally that's within 5 feet of you, the Crown Paladin. It's a cool heroic-like feature, and in Baldur's Gate 3 it's confirmed to also restore that ally's health, at least to some degree. And of course, at levels 3, 5, and 9, Crown Paladins get their Oath-specific spells, which will be prepared at all times. And this is the 5e list right here, some of which may not be present in Baldur's Gate 3 or work the same in Baldur's Gate 3 as they do in 5e. But we have Command, Compelled Duel, Warding Bond, Zone of Truth, Aura of Vitality, and the powerful Spirit Guardians. And lastly, in the community update, Larian says that Crown Paladins will be able to guide their companions in battle with Righteous Clarity. No idea what Righteous Clarity is, though, yet. Any of you 5e players have any idea? And on to the Arcane Archer, which is a subclass that can be found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and is described as: an Arcane Archer studies a unique elven method of archery that weaves magic into attacks to produce supernatural effects. Arcane Archers are some of the most elite warriors among the elves. They stand watch over the fringes of elven domains, keeping a keen eye out for trespassers, and using magic-infused arrows to defeat monsters and invaders before they can reach elven settlements. Over the centuries, the methods of these elf archers have been learned by members of the other races, who can also balance arcane aptitude with archery. Level 3 in BG3 is when the Ranger gets to choose their subclass, and Arcane Archer in 5e, upon this choice, will give a Ranger Arcane Shot, which allows them to unleash special magical effects with some of their shots. These magical effects can be used once per turn, but in 5e they can only be used twice per short rest. Not a big deal in Baldur's Gate 3 though if it's like that, as you can short rest pretty much after every encounter. Some of these magical effects include Banishing Arrow, which is confirmed to be in Baldur's Gate 3, and this of course gives your arrow a chance to banish its target, temporarily removing them from the battlefield. And also confirmed is an arrow that unleashes psychic damage that will force enemies to make a wisdom save or become blinded until the start of their next turn. Those two magical effects are confirmed to be in BG3, but in 5e there's actually many more that you can gain, and you get to choose more magical effects when you reach levels 7 and 10. Some of these other non-confirmed magical effects include Beguiling Arrow, Bursting Arrow, Enfeebling Arrow, Grasping Arrow, Piercing Arrow, Seeking Arrow, and Shadow Arrow. No idea if any of those will be in Baldur's Gate 3. At level 7, Arcane Archers gain Magic Arrow, which allows them to turn regular arrows that they fire, so we're not talking about the Arcane Shot feature, into magical arrows for the purpose of overcoming resistances and immunities to non-magical attacks. Also at level 7 and 5e, Arcane Archers get Curving Shot, which allows them to use a bonus action to shoot another magical arrow, again if their first shot missed. This arrow has to be fired at a different opponent though. And in Baldur's Gate 3, Rangers get another subclass feature at level 11, but it's not like that in 5e. But the next subclass feature in 5e is actually at level 15, and it's called Ever Ready Shot, which allows the Ranger to regain a use of Arcane Shot at the start of an encounter if they are completely out of Arcane Shots. Perhaps that will be the level 11 feature in Baldur's Gate 3, but I'm not entirely sure. And moving on to a fan favorite in D&D 5e, the Drunken Master subclass for the Monk, which can be found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything and is described as: the way of the Drunken Master teaches its students to move with the jerky, unpredictable movements of a drunkard. A Drunken Master sways, tottering on unsteady feet, to present what seems like an incompetent combatant who proves frustrating to engage. The Drunken Master's erratic stumbles conceal a carefully executed dance of blocks, parries, advances, attacks, and retreats. A Drunken Master often enjoys playing the fool to bring gladness to the despondent or to demonstrate humility to the arrogant, but when battle is joined, the Drunken Master can be a maddening, masterful foe. In Larian's community update, they start off by stating that this subclass puts the brew in homebrew, so this may be very different from the 5e version, although the general lore description that I just gave is probably pretty accurate. Larian describes the Drunken Master as a subclass that has the ability to consume alcohol straight from your inventory, as well as drink from bottles that you see around the Sword Coast, in order to recover ki. By sharing the bottles with your enemies using Intoxicating Strike, you'll generate a buff towards your armor class and your chance to hit drunk targets. Drunk enemies are also susceptible to the Drunken Master's other abilities like Sobering Realization, which sobers up drunk targets, dealing physical and psychic damage. Interesting. This subclass seems to be heavily based on not just you being drunk, but also making your opponents drunk through that feature called Intoxicating Strike. And how exactly that attack will work, we'll have to wait and see, but it seems like this subclass may require the limited but abundant resource of drinks that have alcohol in them. This subclass recovers ki by drinking, and ki is used to power several of the general monk class features such as Flurry of Blows. And speaking of Flurry of Blows, in 5e at level 3, drunken monks get Drunken Technique, which makes it so that their Flurry of Blows gets the disengage action, and their move distance increases by 10 feet. Not sure if it will be like that in Baldur's Gate 3, but it seems like an easy implementation. At level 6 in 5e, drunk monks, when they're drunk, get up from being knocked prone at the cost of less movement speed, and when creatures miss melee attacks on them, they can spend a ki point as a reaction to hit one other creature of their choice. So you're not hitting the one that missed their attack on you, you're just swinging at somebody else, which kind of simulates a drunk person swinging around. And at level 11 in 5e, drunk monks get Drunkard's Luck, which allows them to spend ki to overcome having disadvantage on an ability check, attack roll, or save. Of course, take all of that 5e info, the second half of what we just talked about, with a grain of salt, as we already know this subclass is heavily homebrewed. The Swarmkeeper Ranger can be found in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and is described as feeling a deep connection to the environment around them. Some rangers reach out through their magical connection to the world and bond with a swarm of nature spirits. The swarm becomes a potent force in battle, as well as helpful company for the ranger. Some swarm keepers are outcasts or hermits, keeping to themselves and their attendant swarms, rather than dealing with the discomfort of others. Other swarm keepers enjoy building vibrant communities that work for the mutual benefit of all those they consider part of their swarm. The Ranger in Baldur's Gate 3 chooses its subclass at level 3, and choosing Swarmkeeper will make a swarm of intangible nature spirits bonded to you. In BG3, it's confirmed that the Cloud of Jellyfish, Flurry of Moths, and Legion of Bees will be the swarms, different types of swarms, and you'll likely be able to have your swarm assist you once on each of your turns. The Jellyfish Swarm, which is homebrewed by Larian, I believe, is confirmed to deal extra lightning damage, potentially shocking opponents. This could be a really deadly combo with water. The Moths will deal psychic damage and force opponents to make strength saves or be knocked back 15 feet. And the Legion of Bees are confirmed to deal piercing damage, giving the potential to also blind opponents. Each of the swarms will also have the ability to teleport the ranger a certain distance. In 5e at level 3, Swarm Rangers learn the Mage Hand cantrip, which takes on the form of one of their swarms. It'd be really cool if Larian includes that. And also in 5e, the Swarm Ranger gets to learn additional spells, which includes some non-ranger spells being added to your list of choices, such as Fairy Fire, Web, Gaseous Form, and Arcane Eye. At level 7 in 5e is when the Swarm Rangers get Writhing Tide, which is their ability to have their swarm fly them around a bit, and this might be the same as Swarm Rangers gaining their teleportation ability in Baldur's Gate 3, which Larian mentioned. And at level 11, Swarm Rangers in 5e get some buffs to their swarms, which I would assume would be similar in Baldur's Gate 3. Speculating a bit here, your jellyfish and bee swarms damage will likely go up at this level, and the moths may now be able to cause an opponent to fall prone. There may be some more or other benefits, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, right, let's talk about the Swashbuckler Rogue, which can be found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything and is described as, you focus your training on the art of the blade, relying on speed, elegance, and charm in equal parts. While some warriors are brutes clad in heavy armor, your method of fighting looks almost like a performance. Duelists and pirates typically belong to this archetype. A swashbuckler excels in single combat and can fight with 2 weapons while safely darting away from an opponent. In BG3, you choose your rogue subclass at level 3, and the swashbuckler is confirmed to come with the 5e passive that's called Fancy Footwork, which makes it so if your rogue makes a melee attack, that creature that they attacked cannot make an opportunity attack against them for the rest of the rogue's turn. So basically you can move all around that one opponent and away from them freely without having to worry about anything. Swashbuckler rogues in 5e also gain Rakish Audacity, which gives them a bonus to their initiative rolls equal to their charisma modifier. They also gain the ability to use sneak attack without needing advantage on the attack. This only works on opponents that you're within 5 feet of when no other creatures are also within 5 feet and when you don't have disadvantage on your attack. In 5e, Swashbuckler rogues also gain Panache at level 9, which basically makes an opponent of yours do a wisdom check, and if they fail, they'll have disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you, and they can't make opportunity attacks against targets other than you. This can also work on non-hostile creatures, which can cause them to become charmed. No idea if this will be in BG3 though. In Larian's community update, they revealed to us that the Swashbuckler will be able to toss sand at enemies to blind them, and also flick their weapon at a target to disarm that target. Where and when your Swashbuckler will gain those confirmed features, we'll have to wait and see. Into the Shadows and onto the Shadow Magic Sorcerer subclass, which can be found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and is described as, you are a creature of shadow, for your innate magic comes from the Shadowfell itself. You might trace your lineage to an entity from that place, or perhaps you were exposed to its fell energy and transformed by it. The power of shadow magic casts a strange spell over your physical appearance. The spark of life that sustains you is muffled, as if it struggles to remain viable against the dark energy that imbues your soul. In BG3, you choose your subclass at level 1 for the Sorcerer, and the Shadow Magic Sorcerer is confirmed to give superior dark vision, but you'll also be gaining the feature called Strength of the Grave, which will prevent you from being downed. Instead of going down, you'll be left at 1 hit point. And as Larian states, this is great for honor mode runs. My guess would be that this can only be used once per long rest. At level 3 in 5e, Shadow Sorcs automatically gain the Darkness spell, which I'm sure will be the same in BG3. And this Darkness spell can actually be cast with Sorcerer points over a spell slot if the Shadow Sorc chooses to do so. And using the Darkness spell will likely allow you to be able to see through the darkness, while most others will be blinded by it. Also confirmed by Larian, Shadow Sorcerers will be getting the Hound of Ill Omen summon to harass their foes. In 5e, this comes at level 6, so likely the same for BG3, but we know for a fact that Larian has homebrewed this summon quite a lot compared to its 5th edition version. In 5e, you can spend a Sorc point and a bonus action to summon the Hound, which basically takes on the characteristics of a 5th edition direwolf. What Larian does with the Hound for BG3, we're going to have to wait and see, but regardless, summoning an ill-omened Hound sounds pretty sweet and quite powerful for a sorcerer. In Baldur's Gate 3, sorcerers get another subclass feature at class level 11, which is not how it works in 5th edition. And if I had to guess, this will be when the Shadow Sorc gets the confirmed Shadow Walk feature, which allows the Shadow Sorcerer to teleport from dim lighting or darkness to other areas of dim lighting or darkness. Very similar, if not the exact same as what the Shadow Monk gets, which is called Shadow Step. Now, it's not confirmed that this will be a level 11 feature. Shadow Sorcerers may get it much earlier in BG3 as the Monk gets it at level 6, but considering that it's a level 14 feature in 5th edition, I'm just going to take a guess and say that we'll be getting this at level 11 in BG3. Very cool sounding subclass for those who like darkness, and obviously that Hound of Ill Omen summon is going to be quite the feature. onto one of the most requested subclasses for Baldur's Gate 3, the Hexblade Warlock, which can be found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything and is described as, you have made your pact with a mysterious entity from the Shadowfell, a force that manifests its sentient magic weapons carved from the stuff of shadow. The mighty sword Black Razor is the most notable of these weapons, which have been spread across the multiverse over the ages. The shadowy force behind these weapons can offer power to warlocks who form pacts with it. Many Hexblade Warlocks create weapons that emulate those formed in the Shadowfell. Others forego such arms, content to weave the dark magic of that plane into their spellcasting. Because the Raven Queen is known to have forged the first of these weapons, many sages speculate that she and the Force are one, and that the weapons along with the Hexblade Warlocks are tools that she uses to manipulate events on the material plane to her inscrutable ends. At level 1 in BG3, you'll be able to choose this subclass for your Sorcerer, and it will likely give you proficiency with medium armor shields and martial weapons. This is a subclass for those of you who want to use weapons as a warlock versus always relying on pure spellcasting. In 5e and very likely in BG3, your Hexblade will also gain the ability to use their charisma modifier instead of strength or dexterity to make their weapon attacks, and this should happen right away at level 1. It's a bit more nuanced in 5th edition, but I think you get the gist. It's important to keep in mind here, though, that Larian did homebrew the Warlock's level 3 Pact boon, called Pact of the Blade, to also basically do that same thing for a Pact weapon, use the Warlock's Charisma modifier. And I think they did this to throw a bone to those who really wanted Hexblade in Baldur's Gate 3, as it's a really popular subclass, but it's not currently in the game. So how exactly Larian will go about this now that Hexblade is actually coming to the game, we're gonna have to wait and see. Just know that as a Hexblade Warlock, you'll certainly be attacking with weapons that use your Charisma modifier, so you don't really have to invest heavily into strength or dexterity for that purpose. Also at level 1 as a Hexblade Warlock, you gain Hexblade's Curse, which allows you to place a baleful curse on someone as a bonus action, and then you gain a few of the following benefits, such as a bonus to damage rolls against the cursed target, a better chance of rolling a critical hit, and also if the cursed target dies, you will regain hit points, and this can only be used once per short or long rest. At level 6 in 5th edition, Hexblade Warlocks gain a Cursed Spectre, and it is confirmed that at least some version of this will be in Baldur's Gate 3. Larian says that when Hexblade Warlocks slay an enemy that isn't generally an element of nature, construct, giant blob, or already dead, they'll be able to raise their spirit from their corpse for 10 turns. This summon is said to deal necrotic damage and will rip away a chunk of your enemy's soul to provide your Hexblade with healing. A very powerful, fun-sounding feature, and in 5th edition it recharges on a long rest. And at level 10 in 5e, the Hexblade Warlock gains Armor of Hexes, makes your Hexblade's Curse more powerful, allowing you to use your reaction to attempt to dodge a successful attack roll against you from a cursed creature. A nice defensive feature that further encourages the use of that deathly curse. Choosing any Warlock subclass also, of course, gives you an expanded list of spells to choose from as you level up, and Hexblade's expanded list in 5e is as follows. Shield and Wrathful Smite for level 1 spells, Blur and Branding Smite level 2 spells, Blink and Elemental Weapons for level 3 spells, Phantasmal Killer and Staggering Smite for level 4 spells, and Banishing Smite and Cone of Cold for level 5 spells. And last but certainly not least on this list, many of you guys probably jumped to these last 2 chapter markers and skipped all the other ones, is another highly requested subclass called the Bladesinger Wizard, or as Larian calls it, the Blade Singing Wizard. And this subclass can be found in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and is described as Bladesingers master a tradition of wizardry that incorporates swordplay and dance. Originally created by elves, this tradition has been adopted by non-elf practitioners, who honor and expand on the elven ways. In combat, a Bladesinger uses a series of intricate, elegant maneuvers that fend off harm and allow the Bladesinger to channel magic into devastating attacks and a cunning defense. Many who have observed a Bladesinger at work remember the display as one of the more beautiful experiences in their life, a glorious dance accompanied by a singing blade. Wizards get to choose their subclass at level 2 in BG3, and if you choose Blade Singing, it seems very likely that right away at level 2 your wizard will gain proficiency with light armor and proficiency with at least one type of one-handed melee weapon of your choice. This subclass choice may also offer you a way to get that fun performance ability and proficiency in performance like the Bard has. Level 2 is more than just proficiencies though, as this is likely when your wizard will gain Blade Song, as it's called in 5e. And Blade Song graces you with supernatural speed, agility, and focus. Invoking Blade Song, which will likely come at the cost of a bonus action and probably last 10 turns or 1 minute of in-game time, your wizard will gain a boost to armor class equal to their intelligence modifier. Their walking speed will increase by 10 feet, and they'll have advantage on dexterity checks and gain an intelligence modifier bonus to concentration saves. In 5th edition, Bladesingers can use Blade Song a number of times equal to their proficiency bonus per long rest. So in BG3, this would be twice until character level 5, where it then increases to 3, and then your proficiency becomes 4 at character level 9. At level 6, Blade Singing Wizards will most certainly get extra attack, but they may even also get the ability to cast a cantrip in place of an extra attack. And at level 10, at least in 5th edition, Bladesingers gain Song of Defense, which allows them to use their reaction to expend 1 spell slot to reduce incoming damage. This can only be used when Blade Song is active. Now, the amount of damage reduced in 5th edition is equal to 5 times the spell slot's level. And the last feature that Bladesingers get in 5th edition doesn't come until level 14, which of course we can't reach in Baldur's Gate 3, but this feature is called Song of Victory. And I think there's a chance that Larian may include it, as it would be really easy to implement, and what it does is it allows Blade Singing Wizards to add their intelligence modifier to the damage of their melee weapon attacks when Blade Song is active. Who knows if it will be in the game though. Also, with the Blade Singing Wizard, expect some new spell animations when casting spells with your melee weapon, as you can see in this short video clip that Larian has shared with us. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all were able to find some value in this. I really miss doing these videos. I used to do them all the time before Baldur's Gate 3 officially launched. I can tell you one thing though, choice paralysis certainly isn't going away anytime soon, especially with 12 new subclasses, many of which are very, very interesting. Anyways, much more Baldur's Gate 3 content to come, and Larian Studios content, of course. I'll catch you all on the next one.